Now I will give you a quick overview on how Redux State Management actually works. So we have a centralized store which is actually a JavaScript object and which contains all the data related to our application. In our example, we have this completed to-do state and incomplete to-do state, which contains an array of all the completed and incomplete to-dos. Now, how do we manipulate state in the store? Like when we add a new to-do, we wanted to go into incomplete to-dos array. The mechanism used is action creator, action, and reducers. Now, what is an action? Action is a piece of contract which tells our reducers to update an action a certain way. So for example, action here would be to add a new task. These actions are created by action creators. Action creators simply functions which are called by our app component. We can pass parameters like the new task and ask the reducers to update the state accordingly. Reducers are also a function which are responsible for updating the store according to action received. We use a mechanism called connecting a component to the store to access the state and update the state as well using the action creators. We are going to look into a code demonstration on how this all works in practice along with TypeScript. Now let's start coding our Redux State Management. First of all, I'm going to create a folder called types. This folder is going to hold all our types related to our state. Firstly, we are going to define the store type. We are going to have a type of complete, which is going to be a string array. And we are going to also have a type incomplete, which is also going to be string array. Now main store is going to be an object. So the way to define the type of object is by using interface. And we are going to name a store type this. The first parameter we want is the complete, and which is going to be of type complete. And the second parameter is also going to be incomplete of type incomplete. And we're going to export this interface from this file like that. So by writing this, we are telling TypeScript that whatever takes in this type has an key called complete, which is a string array, and a key called incomplete, which is also a string array. We can manipulate these values over here. I'm also going to export these as we're going to need it afterwards. Now let's make some action creators. I'm going to make a folder called action. Inside it, we are going to have index.tsx. And we're going to have a function called mark complete. This function is going to be responsible for marking a to-do as complete or adding a to-do to the complete array in the state. We are going to have two more action creator called mark incomplete and delete to do. We have to export these functions from the file. As you can remember, these functions have to be called from the component to eject an action. So we will export all these functions. These action creators are responsible for creating actions. So it should return a JavaScript object like this. As you can see, these are plain functions without any type safety. So we are going to define some function types which we can assign to these action creator. So let's get started. In the types folder, I'm going to make a new file called action types actions type.tsx, and we will have another file for action creator themselves. So if action creator type dot tsx. So we use the type keyword and let's call it mark complete action creator. This is going to define our mark complete action creator. So this is going to be a function, and the function is going to take a parameter called todo, which is going to be a string, and it is going to return a action. Now what action is it going to return? We have to define that as well. So in action types, we are going to define 3 actions which our 3 action creators are going to return. So we have first interface, which will call mark complete action. This is going to be the type which defines our action. So it should have a type which should be mark complete and a to-do which should be a string. Back to our action creator type. Here we are going to import the types of those actions. So import action types, and if you press Ctrl space here, we can see what all is exported from that file. So I'm going to import all 3. And our mark complete action creator is going to return mark complete action. Next type is mark incomplete action creator, which is going to take a to-do which will be of type string, and it is going to return an action called mark incomplete action. Lastly, we have delete to-do action creator, which is a function which will take in a to-do and it is going to return action called delete to-do action. Now let's start writing the actions themselves. Let's go in an index, and we have a mockup of those functions ready, but we will import those types that we defined. So let's import. Wait. I think we forgot to export the types. First, let's export this. Like that. And in index, we can import it from types. If you remember, we had put a base URL in tsconfig, so it will help us to import these modules absolutely from the src file. So if I go into the types folder like this and into action creator types, I can easily get access to those modules. So if I press Ctrl space here, I get all the named exports like that. A mark complete function is going to be of type mark complete action creator. And mark incomplete function is going to be of mark incomplete action creator, and delete to do action creator is going to be of delete to do action creator. As you can see, this is already giving me an error because it wants me to return a proper action which we have defined. So let's take the to do itself, and we have to return a type which should be, it is giving me autocomplete of mark complete because it wants me to only return this type from this type of action creator, and it wants me to return a to do. Now let's start writing the reducers. I'll make a folder called reducers. In it, we are going to have an index file, and let's import some functions. So we need combine reducers function. Using this function, we can combine the reducers which we are going to define in other files and return it. So we are going to export default we're going to call combine reducers with an object, and this object is going to hold all our reducers. Now let me define other reducers first. So make another file called complete reducers.tsx and another called incomplete reducer.tsx. Inside this combined reducer, we have this object. Think of this object as our actual store, as we showed in this diagram. We are going to have a key called complete to do, which is going to have an array, and an incomplete to do, which is also going to have an array of those to dos. Now let's define our reducer. We have to first import the reducer from Redux, like this. Now reducers are just functions which are responsible for setting the state according to the action received. So we do it like this. Now this function is going to be of type reducer, so let's set it. Now this specific reducer is going to be responsible for setting the state of the complete state. For example, this reducer is going to set the complete state only, and the incomplete reducer is going to set the incomplete state. In the reducer function, we get the state and the action dispatched from the action creator. Now we don't know what type the state is going to be and the action is going to be. As you can see, this is of state any, and this is not a good practice in TypeScript. So we are going to define the type of this reducer. To define more specific type of this reducer in terms of what type of state it is going to get and what type of action it is going to get, we are going to use templating, or in other words, generics. So we have already defined what types of actions these reducers are going to get. So let's import them. From action types, we are going to import all three types of action. So we need delete action, we need mark complete and mark incomplete action. Mark incomplete action. And we are also going to need the state this reducer is going to handle. So if you remember, we had exported a type from a store type, which is the complete and incomplete. So we can import that here. So we have a state called complete. Now, as you can see, we can pass two templates here. The first one is the state, what type of state we are going to get and what type of action we are going to get. So the state we are going to handle is called complete, and the actions we are going to return is delete action or mark complete action and mark incomplete action. This is how we define the reducer in TypeScript. Now let's do the same for incomplete reducer. We're going to import the reducer itself, reducer type itself from Redux, and let's define a reducer. So we are going to have reducer called incomplete reducer, which is of type reducer, and let's import those actions we had exported from types, action types. We are going to need all three actions. Like that, and the state which we are going to handle. So we can import that state as well from types and store type. State we are going to handle is incomplete. So the first generic we pass is the state, which is going to be incomplete state. And the actions we are going to get are delete action or mark action or mark incomplete action. Now let's start writing the reducer itself. So we're going to switch on the type of action. As you can see, we are already getting the autocomplete. The first case would be if we press control space, we are going to get all the types of action that we are going to receive. So for mark complete, we are going to return a state. In this case, our state is a simple array, and we are going to spread out our initial state which was set before, and we are going to add this new to do as well. So the new to do is going to be in action dot to do. If you remember, this action, mark complete action, was responsible for either marking a to do as complete or adding a new to do to complete array. So what we are saying here is when a action called mark complete is dispatched, then our reducer should return the original state which was set and the new to do that has been added by the action itself. We are getting a lot of errors here, but we'll sort this out as we progress writing the reducer. So our second action is going to be mark incomplete and delete. So for both of these actions, we want to remove the given to do. So when we are marking a to do as incomplete, we want to remove it from the complete array and add it to the incomplete array. And when we delete a to do itself, we want to delete it whatever the case is. So we're going to return a new array which will have the original state, but that state is going to be filtered. And we are getting this autocomplete question mark. Let me remove it because we don't need it. And in the filter, I'm going to pass a function which sees if we want only the to do's which are not equal to the to do passed by the action, like this. We are getting this error for the state, but I will tell you what it is. And we have to define a default case as well. So we define default where we return a new array by spreading the original state. Now, when our application runs for the first time, our state is going to be empty, and that is not, and as we are running filters and all these things on it, TypeScript doesn't like it. So we have to define the initial state which has to be set in the Redux store. So let's define that. So we have const initial state, which is going to be of type complete and which is going to be an empty array. Now we can pass this initial state here, like this, and all our error goes away. We have to export this reducer as well. So we want to default export it. It's complete reducer. That's all. Let's review this reducer once. So we have type reducer which has generics of complete and these actions which it is going to return. Then for mark complete, we are just adding the new to do to the array. The main thing to take away from this is we have to always return a new array. We can't just return this state itself. So we have to return a new array which has to have a spreaded state and whatever update you want to make. Now let's write the incomplete reducer. Here also we are going to have an initial state. So let me define it first so that we don't get any other errors. So we're going to have an initial state of type incomplete, which is going to be an empty array. We don't have any to-dos initially. And let's set that as our initial state, like that, and let's take an action as well. So let's switch on action dot type, wait, action dot type, and the first case is going to be mark incomplete, in which we are just going to add it to the array. So let's return a new array with spreaded state and the new to do added. So action dot to do. Now in the case of delete to do and mark complete to do, we are going to do the same thing. We are just going to remove the to do from the incomplete list. We're going to spread the state, but we are going to filter as well with the function to do, where the to do is not equal to the to do passed in the action dot to do. And we have to define the default case as well. So default we're going to just return our initial state. Now we have to import this reducer in the index file. So let's import complete from complete reducer and import incomplete from incomplete reducer. And now we are going to set our main state. So the key is going to be complete and the state is going to be determined by the reducer itself. So we define it like this. So the key is going to be complete and the value is going to be this function, this reducer we imported. This reducer will set the new state. As we were returning these new states, this state is set over here. So to simplify it, I can just write complete here as key and value have the same name and incomplete here. Okay, this is all for this video. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one.